got to press this little button. Thank you. We're going to be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 25, text number 10. So that's 4:25:10, the characteristics of King Puranjana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text number 10. Asit Puranjano Nama Raja Rajan Brichachrava Tasya Vijnata Namasit Sakha Vijnata Chestita. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. My dear King, once in the past lived a king named Puranjana, who was celebrated for his great activities. He had a friend named Avijnata, the unknown one. No one could understand the activities of Avijnata. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Every living entity is Puranjana. The word Puram means within this body, within this form. And Jana means living entity. Thus, everyone is Puranjana. Every living entity is supposed to be the king of his body because the living entity is given full freedom to use his body as he likes. He usually engages his body for sense gratification because one who is in the bodily conception of life feels that the ultimate goal of life is to serve the senses. So just from the start, we can see how capturing this whole entering into the material body, it sounds like a small thing, but actually it's completely consuming for the living entity, for the Jivatma. Once he enters into this ignorance, then it is all consuming. Therefore he's called Puranjana, one who lives within this. Somebody's still got their mic on. I don't know who it is, but we just got a good cough there. Just thought I'd give that little bit of feedback. This is the process of karma kand. One who has no inner knowledge, who does not know that he is actually the spirit soul living within the body. My turn to cough. Start again. One who has no inner knowledge, who does not know that he is actually the spirit soul living within the body, who is simply enamored by the dictation of the senses, is called a materialist. A materialistic person interested in sense gratification can be called a Puranjana. Because such a materialistic person utilizes his senses according to his whims, he may also be called a king. An irresponsible king takes the royal position to be his personal property and misuses his treasury for sense gratification. The word Brihat is also significant. The word Shrava means fame. The living entity is famous from ancient times for, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2:20, Najayate Mriyate Va. Quote, the living entity is never born and never dies, end quote. That whoever's got that mic on, it's still going on, so please just check if you've got your mic, because I keep hearing little bits and pieces. If you can, please just flick it off. It might be one of our organizers, maybe, who knows. Because he is eternal, his activities are eternal, although they are performed in different types of bodies. Say that one again. Because he is eternal, his activities are eternal, although they are performed in different types of bodies. Nahanyate hanyamane sarire. Quote, he does not die, even after the annihilation of the body, end quote. Thus, the living entity transmigrates from one body to another and performs various activities. In each body, the living entity performs so many acts. Sometimes he becomes a great hero, just like Hiranyakashipu and Kamsa, or, in the modern age, Napoleon or Hitler. The activities of such men are certainly very great, but as soon as their bodies are finished, everything else is finished. Then they remain in name only. Therefore, a living entity may be called Brihatshrava. He may have a great reputation for various types of activities. Nonetheless, he has a friend whom he does not know. Materialistic persons do not understand that God is present as the Supersoul, who is situated within the heart of every living entity. Although the Paramatma sits beside the Jivatma as a friend, the Jivatma, or living entity, does not know it. Consequently, he is described as Avijnata Shakha, meaning, quote, one who has an unknown friend. The word Avijnata Chetasa is also significant because a living entity works hard under the direction of the Paramatma and is carried away by the laws of nature. Nonetheless, he thinks himself independent of God and independent of the stringent laws of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:24, Achedoyam adhayoyam akledyo sosya evacha nitya sarvagata shanur achaloyam shanata. Translation. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same, end quote. The living entity is Sanatana, eternal. Because he cannot be killed by any weapon, burnt into ashes by fire, soaked or moistened by water, nor dried up by air, he is considered to be immune to material reactions. Although he is changing bodies, he is not affected by the material conditions. He is placed under the material conditions and he acts according to the directions of his friend, the Supersoul. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham ridi shani vishto matasmritir jnanam apohanam cha. Translation. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. End quote. Thus, the Lord, as Paramatma, is situated in everyone's heart, and he gives directions to the living entity to act in whatever way the living entity desires. In this life and in his previous lives, the living entity does not know that the Lord is giving him a chance to fulfill all kinds of desires. No one can fulfill any desire without the sanction of the Lord. All the facilities given by the Lord are unknown to the conditioned soul. Om Magana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Grave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master is forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The characteristics of King Puranjana, and we are hearing how more or less we can all be called Puranjana, one who is living within the body. So Srila Prabhupada's purport points out this very inconceivable point. There are many inconceivable points to be contemplated, to be understood, And one of them is the most amazing thing. Maharaj Yudhisthira, the most amazing thing was that although everyone is dying, I don't think I will die. Another amazing thing to be contemplated is what we're hearing here, is that the living entity has a friend, and the friend is directing everything according to the desires of the living entity, trying to fulfill Krishna's giving the knowledge, the remembrance, and the forgetfulness. So he's giving everything to the living entity, the little jiva. And the little jiva has no idea what is actually going on. He thinks himself, prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma kartamiti manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, considers himself to be the doer of activities, but actually they're being carried out by nature. And nature, Krishna says, is working under my direction. Krishna tries so hard to explain everything very clearly, but because we are very dull, we find it very difficult to understand the most simple thing, that I am situated within your heart. I'm giving you the knowledge, I'm giving you the remembrance and forgetfulness. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. There are so many eternal, Shastra says, but there is one supreme eternal who's providing everything for all the other dependent eternals. And the amazing thing is that Krishna set it up so perfectly that to help fulfill the desire of the childlike jivatma, he sets it up so that the little jivatma can actually think he is the supreme. He is independent, supremely independent. And we see that, I've used that example many times. Children are manifesting this proclivity to think themselves completely independent, so that mother and father have to take them and, no, it's time for you to go to sleep now. You're nearly going to fall over. You're so tired. But the child can't get it. And all the mothers and some fathers will testify to that. The child gets so, they get crotchety or scratchety or whatever way you want to say it, where they need to go to sleep. So the living entity is so enthusiastic to enjoy in the world. And Krishna is acting impartially to fulfill those desires, naturally according to one's karma. One is placed in a specific body to enact various desires. Often I look at the birds outside, and the birds are, and you see in modern films, I've seen like that, they can show, I think Prananath Prabhu did a video at Mayapur showing the drone, it was the drone, this, flying camera type thing. So he has that, and it can go in any sort of place, just like a bird, it can fly. And you get a sense of what it must be like to be a bird being able to fly. And the bird thinks, it's wonderful, I'm able to fly, and here's my little partner bird, we're flying this way and that way, through the trees, through the branches, under here, up here, and through, and I land here, and I hop off here, and I do all these acrobatic activities. Maybe that's what will happen for all the gymnastic people. They'll take birth as birds in the next life. Maybe, but who knows? The 8,400,000 species in the modes of nature, it just gives all facility for the living entity. But we are thinking that we are different. We are human beings. We're not just birds. We have so many different desires and so many different capacities. But this is the bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the modes of material nature, considers himself to be completely independent, when actually he's dependent at every moment for the air that we breathe. Where does it come from? The food that we eat, the water that we drink, the ability to hear, the ability to speak, the ability to contemplate with the mental capacity, to have the intellect to make discrimination as to what to do and what not to do. And we think it's all belonging to us until bang, whammo, something goes wrong. I think Keshava Maharaj was listening to one of his lectures a few weeks ago, and he was making this point. He said that in everyone's life, just like here in New Zealand, you have earthquakes, which I participated in one down in Christchurch a number of years ago. Dramatic event. I was up in a room at the top of the temple, the second floor in the old temple in Christchurch. And I was coming down the stairs when this earthquake hit. I was coming down the big wooden stairs and quite wide, coming down. And this is exactly when the earthquake hit as I was coming down the stairs, and the whole staircase started shaking back and forward. And one of the words, stanum, is where we stand. We think something is solid. Yes, at least the ground upon which we stand is solid. Got something to tell you, not a fact. It's not solid. It's subject to be turned upside down at any moment. So Maharaj was explaining this point that in life, they like earthquakes come without any warning, and in life we have many life quakes. Life quakes are appearing. So we're going along. Oh, that's a bit of a disturbance. This is a bit of a problem. And we negotiate and navigate through it. And then, whammo, you get some kind of severe illness. You get some kind of real big upset in your life through relationships per se, or some accident or death of a relative, or so many things are there. They're called life quakes. And the Maharaj was explaining, I think it's been quote unquote analyzed like everything else in this world. You can get statistics of just about anything you want, that at least everyone will experience at least 5 or 6. I think I've added it. I think it was 5, he said. You might get a few more, who knows. Life quakes that we have to endure. Now, wouldn't it be an interesting or a novel way to see those life quakes as opportunities to learn something, that my existential position here in this world is very, very fleeting and temporary, and it is a great illusion for me to completely forget my spiritual identity and get lost in the pursuit of sense gratification. Shastra says that there is a special purpose for the human form of life. Kamashana indriya pritir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasha na arto yascheha kamabi. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. Bas, that's the first statement of this verse. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. Kamashana indriyapiti labo jiveta yavata. Jivasya tattva jignasha. Why? Because the jiva who has attained the human form of life is meant, jivasya tattva jignasa, he's meant to inquire into the absolute truth. That is the special differentiation between us and all the other species of life. We've talked about this, and Srila Prabhupada presented it in so many ways. We eat, we sleep, we mate, and we defend. So do the animals, so do all the other species. But the human form has the special capacity to contemplate. And in this section of the Bhagavatam, we see Narada Muni trying to speak to King Parchinibhari in such a way that he's able to understand his actual position, because it's not easy to break out of this, whether you're a bird, whether you're an animal, whatever species of life. It's similar in the human form of life. It's not easy to come out of this entanglement. So the human form of life is being explained, and this will be explained throughout this chapter and maybe 1 or 2 other chapters following, has this special capacity to be able to contemplate. So I'm just going to from this point, go back a little bit to the beginning of the chapter and try and get a context to how we can proceed with this chapter. So Maharaj, in the previous chapter, the song sung by Lord Shiva to benefit the Prachetas, it stated that Maharaj Antardhana's son was Barishmat. So these great emperors are, it's very interesting. I'm just thinking here, I think it might have been Gopi Paranadhana, who was the put together with other devotees the Srimad Bhagavatam later cantos. There's a lovely devotee, and he said at one time, he said that if the Bhagavatam was all only stories about Brahmanas, no one would be able to listen because it's so boring in one sense, because Brahmanas just, they might do a little puja and a little bit of meditation and live very peacefully. And who wants to read about that? So he was just sort of making a bit of a joke in one sense, but very true in another, that because it deals with the great kings who are conquering. And it's very interesting, actually, because Narada Muni is doing the same thing in this chapter. He's speaking in such a way so that King Prachinabarishat will be able to understand. So he's using the allegory of King Puranjana, because it's explained in one of these verses that because King Puranjana is attached to the process for that age, the performance of great yagyas, for the benefit. He's not just attached for his own gratification, but he knows this is the process which will bring great opulence and prosperity and protection for the people, his prajas, the dependents. So he's doing that, and but Narada is trying to speak in such a way so that he'll be able to appreciate the subject matter. So he's speaking in this allegorical way of this King Puranjana, who's none other than King Prachinabhari himself, and they are none other than all of us. So the Bhagavatam's speaking in a very wonderful, beautiful way of very powerful kings and their descendants, and very universal activities which are stretching our intellect and stretching our understanding and appreciation of all the aspects of this amazing manifest world. And then the Brahminical side comes through in all the teachings after the kings get themselves in all sorts of difficulties and so on. And then we're ready to hear about the sadhus who appear and bring solace to the difficulty. So the Prachetas were helped by Lord Shiva, and they were encouraged by Lord Shiva to recite these wonderful prayers and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this way, it's very beautiful. We see how Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, Atam Sambhu, is trying to assist the devotees. And we see Narada Muni is coming to give proper guidance to the devotees so that they can come to a higher understanding of the entanglement and how they're entangled. So this is the duty then, is the executive head, the kings, to perform welfare activities, but they're stated in the first verse of this chapter to be aimed at the understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the highest welfare work, para upaka. And it also explains there, it is natural, I've just written a note here, it's natural to become distracted from the main purpose of life. So we've just heard that the main purpose of life is atato brahma jignasa, to inquire into who we are, but it's so natural due to the three modes of material nature to become distracted from that purpose of life. And so King Prachinabhari said he is distracted over in over entangled in this fruitive performance of yagyas. That's the karma kandas ideas, karma, performing the activities to have a specific result. And because Dhruva Maharaj is the grandsire of this dynasty, Narad took compassion and he came to instruct Prachina Bali about the ultimate benediction of life. So this ultimate benediction of life is not karma kand, or it's not jnana kand, upasana kand. It is the bhakti yoga. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that at the end of the 6th chapter, yoginam api sarvesham madgatin antaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, that yogi who always abides in me with great faith, worshiping me in transcendental loving services, the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all yogis. Why? Because all yoga processes are there to transfer our consciousness from material through to spiritual, through to divine loving service. So the absorption of materialism is there, then to come out of that absorption in the karmic activities through meditation and yoga, we can come to understand that I am not a part of this material body, in this material world, but I am Jivarasvoy, and that's the next level. That I am Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am not material. But then we have to go further. That is not the ultimate position. We have to come to to understand that we are the eternal Jivarasvarupa Nichara Krishna Das, Krishna Tatasta Shakti, Beta Beta Prakash. That I am that Tatasta Shakti, that marginal potency that is able to render service to the Supreme. So here we are in the world. So Bhagavatam is explaining these things in this verse 1 of this chapter. So we've already explained that the human form of life is specially meant for understanding God. That point was made. And Prabhupada mentions that for understanding God, our relationship with Him, Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of our relationship with that Supreme Personality. Very important. Vedanti tattvavidas tattvam yajganaman advayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavanati subjite. Learned transcendentalists who know this absolute truth realize this non-dual substance as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So we are encouraged by Srimad Bhagavatam, by the great acharyas in this line, to understand that we actually have a relationship with the Supreme Person. We are persons, and God is a person. Natu evaham natune samnam natvam name janati pa. In the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes that point to Arjuna. He said that we are all, never was there a time that I did not exist. Krishna is speaking. He's a person. Impersonal doesn't speak. Never was there a time that I did not exist, nor you, Arjuna, the person that I'm speaking to, nor in the future will any of us cease to be. We are eternal, unborn, ever existing, and undying. We are not slain when the body is slain. So the body is always changing. The Jivatma is remaining, and he has his eternal relationship. And we have that relationship is, Prabhupada also mentions in that first verse of this chapter, understanding God, our relationship with him, and our activities in his service. So that is our identity. We are related to God in loving service. And it's going to take a little while to pick that up, to pick it up, because we're so scripted in the drama of life that says, I am at the center of everything. So continuing, so that is then in about text 4, pure unadulterated happiness is pointed out before this is pointed out that it cannot be had in the material world. And there's a great trials and tribulations and endeavor, a lot of hard work to gain sense gratification, to fulfill our material desires before we can get the result, the fruit of result. So much pain. Prabhupada gives the example of a lady has to pierce her nose or pierce ears to be able to place some gold or jewel in those places. So that is, why do you want to do that? So that there will be some pleasure. I'll see that my beauty is enhanced by these jewels, but you have to endure some difficulty to get the nose pierced or the ears pierced in that way. So he gives that example, which is very graphic and we can understand it very easily. And so it is with everything. If we want to construct a skyscraper building, Prabhupada gives that example, then we have to go to so much endeavor to construct that building. You have to contemplate it, then you have to draw plans, you have to employ engineers. Engineers have to arrange for all the materials to be brought. So much endeavor is there. On and on and on and on until finally you open the building. And then another set of difficulties starts. You think, oh, now it's done. The next thing is even more difficult, but it doesn't seem that way. The next thing is maintenance. You have to maintain that building. They say you have to set aside a certain percentage of the cost of the building every year to maintain it. And it doesn't seem like, you think, hey, come on, it's all brand new. What's the problem? We don't maintain anything. Oh, the lift broke down. Okay, fair enough. We'll have to do something with that. Oh, some of the windows are cracked here. And it goes on and on and on and on. I'm just reminded in Vrindavan, it was a building just across the back yard going from the Krishna Balaram temple through to the MVT, that laneway that's there. Many buildings, devotees are living in that area a lot. So there was one building and it was a nightmare. I went one time, we were thinking about getting a place in Vrindavan, although you can't actually get a place in Vrindavan, but that's another subject. It all is owned by Krishna, Srimati Radharani. Anyway, this building was a nightmare, and the construction was completely botched, and the foundations were wrong, and the steel that was used was corroding, and it was just everything needed repairing from top to bottom. And the fellow used to sit on the edge of his bed there, and people would come and he would try and sell them another apartment in that very difficult building. So we are pursuing sense gratification, but at a great cost. And we could talk, but we'll try and stick to the other points that are made in this chapter so far. So this unadulterated happiness that we seek, that's what we seek, cannot be had in the material world. Dash, I was sure I could make it. No, I'm afraid not. It's always sukha dukkha. It's happiness and distress. So we just have to pursue more happiness. That makes sense, doesn't it? There's happiness and distress, and we want happiness. So I just have to pursue happiness, and sense gratification and all kinds of is what I think and I experience creates pleasure. Therefore, I'll pursue that. It's very logical. But how's it been going? How's it been going, that pursuit? Not too well, but I'm hoping pretty soon I'm going to get there. And if we check out the path of life, it's like that. Child is enjoying in certain ways, and that's a fact, but they're always hoping that they'll grow up and enjoy more. And if you go and it goes on like that, you know the story better than me, or as well as me. So this pure unadulterated happiness cannot be had. And then Srila Prabhupada in text 5, he says that so many material benefits have accrued for the Westerners. So it's a fact. Many of, a reasonable number of Prabhupada's disciples were very well positioned in the world, very rich parents, aristocratic birth, and so on, very wealthy, very wealthy. We have Ambarish Ford, who we know is building a big temple in Sridham Mayapur, with the help of everyone. And then actually the other person, the Ruthers, I think they were called, they were, anyway, very, one Mataji, anyway, it's a whole other story. I better not go there. So, but Prabhupada pointed that out, that they're coming from very well-situated, beautiful bodily features in their youth there, and so much facility. But it wasn't satisfying, and they could see that this pursuit of life for sense gratification didn't appear very bright for them. So they rejected it and became hippies. So, and then in one nice lecture, I always remember Srila Prabhupada said that the Indian people, they hear about another planet called the West, especially in those days, in the early 60s, say. I would pretty much, it was the beginning in this early 60s that people would come from India to America. And it was like another heavenly planet, where there were smooth roads, shining cars, skyscraper buildings, all facilities to be enjoyed in the cities that are brought in from the country and manufactured into specific goods. And it's like another planet. Who wouldn't want to go there? But then Srila Prabhupada was speaking to an Indian community in America at the time. And he said, we thought it was like, it was heaven, but those who are here, they know what kind of heaven it is. It's hell. He didn't say that. That's me. I've added that, but that's the import that Prabhupada was presenting. This is Maya Shakti. Maya Shakti is so powerful that it appears so good. Just like here in Auckland, you'll see that, and maybe you experienced that too. There's certain new sections of road, and it's so smooth. I can't believe how smooth some of the motorway is. It's just spot on. And it has all those little, when you're driving at night, especially when you get a bit older, it's very hard. If it's raining and dark, you can hardly see the white lines for the different lanes and different, but so now they've got these really shiny, 6 or 8 of them in a row, little things that they stick in the road between the lanes, and it just is black tarmac, smooth as, and all the little lanes are there. You think, wow, they've got it together. We're really going to enjoy now. It's definitely going to be there. And you see the advertisements in the same genre that roadworks, you're going to suffer, by the way, roadworks, more lanes by 2024 it'll be this time, or 25 now it'll be going pushed out to. And we think, yeah, then we'll be happy. Just like I was last night, I was somewhere, where was I? Yeah, going to Murawai. So on that section, they're repairing roads there. Maybe that's why it's in my thought pattern as well. But they were repairing roads. And I know the story. I was talking to an accountant down in Kumu, and there's plans. They have very, 10, 20-year plans. So there's a big motorway, the motorway comes out all the way to Brigham's Creek, and there's a roundabout, and guess what? End of motorway. And then you go in the bottleneck down the hill up towards the Temple Way. And then it goes to Kumu. And don't worry, there's more lanes. So this is it's getting more and more and more congested. So we have to come up with a plan. So they're not ready to completely put the motorway through the Kumu area. That will happen in a number of years. But they're already repairing and remodeling sections beyond Kumu, going further and further to connect to other motorways and so on and so on. Oh, I'm exhausted. Just speaking about it is exhausting, because it's the carrot that's there, and we're always thinking, yes, it's going to be better, and we'll enjoy, but working so hard to achieve this, on and on. And we don't see the imperceptible days of our lives, click, 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 click. And before you know it, you're still chasing. But now, instead of being 20 and 30 and maybe 40, you're 50 and 60 and maybe 70 and maybe more. And this is the way we don't get it. So fortunately, the great sages like Narad come and explain this subject matter, that no matter how much we do in this world, it may be very pious or impious. Better to do pious than impious. But even pious activities, even performing yagyas in this karmakandic way, it will only guarantee a higher birth or elevation to other planets. Krishna has already said, Abrahma bhuvana loka purna avartino arjuna. From the highest planet in the material world, unimaginably wonderful, down to the lowest. All are Krishna's categorizing. They're all places of misery. Why? Because repeated births and death, births and death, birth. This is going on. And the little jiva doesn't see that the super soul is right next to him. And it's the super soul who's sanctioning and facilitating everything for the little dependent jiva. And Krishna says, Savadhamam Prityagya Mamikam Saranam Braja. Abandon all kinds of dharmic activity. What to speak of adharmic activity? Even dharmic activity. Abandon all of those and surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all karmic reactions, sinful reactions. Don't be afraid. This is my promise. And he says, so even if you doubt me, Krishna says, sometimes I'm a bit tricky. And some people think that I'm partial in different ways. So he asks Arjuna, declare it boldly, O Arjuna, my devotee never perishes. Kunteya. So let us go then. What time have we got? So we will finish very soon, actually. We'll finish in maybe a few minutes because I got a little bit of a tight program this morning, believe it or not. Text number 6, Prachini Bharisat was so fortunate, although engaged in fruitive activities, Narad appeared before him. And I thought this was a very important point. We hear it often, but maybe not often enough. We have to hear it daily. The opportunity that we have, the benediction that we've been given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unimaginable. So Prachina Bharisat was so fortunate that although engaged in fruitive activities, now he was so fortunate because he had the connection to Dhruva Maharaj. He was a descendant in this line. So Narad became very compassionate upon him, and he appeared. There's no obligation for Narada Muni to appear, but he felt that this is very important for this king to show this example of being able to go beyond the confines, the restrictions of karmic activity, even though it may be very exalted. But in his line, they are great devotees of the Lord that we should shine the light on. So Brahmanda Brahmati Kona Bhagavanaji, Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. There are unlimited living entities. Just lift up a brick or lift up a piece of wood and you get an idea how many is just under that piece of wood, and there's billions and trillions of pieces of wood, and etc., etc. So there's so many wandering all over this manifest Brahmanda, this universe, and one who gets this opportunity to get the benediction of this parampara system from Krishna to through the whole part. We won't go through the whole parampara system. Srila Prabhupada is our great benefactor, just as Narada Muni is the great benefactor for King Prachinabhari, and he's speaking in such a way so that he will be able to understand and be able to apply this process. So this is the same way that Srila Prabhupada came to us and underwent, so we heard in the Lilamrita earlier, just before we began here, that he underwent so many austerities. Sometimes we talk about, at home, especially it's a challenge, Suchi and Muchi. Is that Suchi or is this Muchi? And Suchi and Muchi. And I was thinking the other day about that, how Srila Prabhupada, he went to Butler, Pennsylvania, and he went to different places where Suchi and Muchi, he had to transcend in so many ways. but his consciousness was always Suchi. It was always divine. It was always pure. But he had to be in different circumstances, a little bit like the super soul. And once it says that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the internal super soul. So just as the super soul has to sit in so many abominable bodies, but he's not affected. So Srila Prabhupada will use this example, but correct me if I've got it wrong, but Srila Prabhupada kind of manifest that too. He was able to go where nobody else would go. The sannyasi is not supposed to cross the ocean. He's not supposed to fly in airplanes or move in boats or whatever. He's supposed to put his feet on the ground, and only in that way. So thanks to Srila Prabhupada, the stereotype concepts of religion and Brahminical understanding and the absolute truth. Thanks to that, in the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan and Lord Nityananda's Sankirtan, bestowing what no other incarnation has ever bestowed, pure love of God. Qualification for us in ending is we have to get our act together to some degree. Krishna says he preserves what we have and he carries what we lack. We've discussed that many times. We lack a lot, and our job is to at least reduce some of the lacking. Yeah? So we lack so many qualifications in devotional. So our business is we may not become perfect. And Prabhupada also in another place it was said like that. Oh, if we could become 90% purified, I'll take you back. And then the devotee said, but Prabhupada, 90% is all. So he took it down and down to a lower level. But then bas, he made. So we have our work to do so that we can show Krishna, who is Bhava Grahi Janardhan, the knower of the heart. So if we can nurture, or manifest a little bit of sincerity and carry on this path, and it's such a wonderful path, we have to pat ourselves on the back. Give yourself a pat on the back. You are traversing this path. And if you read Bhagavatam, we listened to the purports earlier, that last chapter, Srila Prabhupada was saying that it's so difficult to break out of this conditioned existence. The attraction to sense gratification is completely all-encompassing. So give yourself a pat on the back. You are trying to your very best, and it can get better. And Krishna will help us, and the more he helps us, the better it might get. And so that we can not embarrass Srila Prabhupada. He said that. He said, please don't embarrass me. I've been criticized in so many ways for giving this Krishna conscious way of life to such malechas and yavanas, low-born people. And but now I'm asking you to become a little responsible. Live happily together, husband and wife, mainly mass, 99% or more. So live peacefully, learn how to become a proper gentleman or a lady, and try our best to act in the best way that would be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. When we're ever faced with a decision to make, maybe it's a good idea to think if Srila Prabhupada was here, what standard would Prabhupada, knowing the Western civilization and how he would adjust in different ways. So we should take a cue from Prabhupada, and in that way, we will be able to keep progressing, and Krishna will preserve that what we have and he'll carry what we like. So I'm going to finish there. I appreciate you listening, and I'm going to not give time for any reflections because I do have to go. So thank you very much. My apologies for not being able to enter into a very happy part of giving classes, actually, to have the reflections. Please forgive me. And we'll look forward to catching up in the very near future. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhya patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Jai Shri Prabhu ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.